Welcome all of you to this wonderful subject of professional ethics. The module which we are going to discuss will give you a complete understanding on what is the difference between being ethical, being legal, and then in further subtopics we will be discussing about what actually is natural justice, how to redress the grievances, how we have to deal with minors, and so on. Let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Vijit Chaturvedi. My specialization includes HR, OB, and in apply industrial psychology. I am professor in this area, and this makes me highly interested in talking about the sub-issues related to ethical and to legal practices. Whenever we are talking about organization sustainability, organization's effectiveness, it is quite obvious that important aspects of what is being ethical means or how we have to ensure that ethical adherence is effectively being taken care of is ensured. This subtopic will give you a fair understanding on this. So, legal aspects of professions and ethics. The objectives of this specific subtopic is to bring you and understand what is the difference between being ethical and being legal. It will help you to understand what are the specific laws which ensure and which help in complying whenever we are talking about ethical practices. And we will be discussing about what are the different issues in terms of challenges when it comes to professional ethics. The first and foremost thing which has to be understood is what are the different sources of ethical norms? As individuals, we are all different. There are many factors which impact and which have a strong influence whenever we are talking about the ethical norms. It may be our fellow workers, it may depend upon the geography in which we belong to, it depends upon our background, our experience, our social circle. It depends upon probably the employer with whom we are associated, that how the important aspect of ethics is being taken care of and how it is implemented for that specific organization. Also important is the fact that there is a deep pertinent role also of the religious beliefs. Many a times we face with these situations, and all of us know this makes us to think, stop and think on whether it is ethical or whether it is legal. You gave your money to somebody, and in return of it, you ask something, you expect something. Is it legal or ethical? Whenever our things are dropping and we are looking for it, and somebody gets back, get back those things to us, what would you call it? Many a countries even abortion is legal. So what would you call it? So the first thing which we have to understand is how these two things are different. Similarly, we have other examples like those, which makes us to stop and think, is this ethical or is this legal? So very important while somebody is crossing the red light, while somebody is not paying respectively the bills, or while somebody is stealing out of the unavoidable conditions, what would you call it? Similarly, when it comes to compliances, whether it is pertaining to any law, any particular act, what are the conditions why certain things, certain institutions are not abiding by it? Once again, makes us to think about this is something which is lack or non-fulfillment of legal practices. So you see, there is a high overlapping between ethics and law. Whenever we are talking about this thing, ethics represent a standard which exceeds the minimum legal which is required to be adhered or to be followed. While we were talking about legal and ethical implications, a very beautiful example is of Minimum Wages Act of 1948. The basic objectives of which is to fix the minimum rate of wages so that in terms of the scheduled employment, there is no exploitation, effective social justice is ensured. One has to ensure that employer is committed to pay so that in terms of equity it is maintained, and in terms of unfairness it can be avoided. So while we are talking about minimum fair and living wages, minimum wages is the minimum which has to be given by the employer irrespective of his or her ability to pay. So this includes the required fulfillment for the basic requirements, whether it is education, whether it is medical requirement, or whether it is the basic amenities. Living wages includes a level higher, something which is targeted for the frugal comfort as well. For example, for the futuristic requirement, or it could be an insurance for the employees. And then when we talk about fair wages, this depends upon the capacity and the willingness of the employer to pay. But overall, whenever we are talking about minimum wages, overall purpose is social justice and fairness is ensured. Other wonderful aspect is corporate social responsibility. Till it was not made as a mandate, every organization was actively doing it. But yes, how and which should be the target audience or how it can be related to a bigger social benefit only came when we saw it was mandated. This was important because every organization, every institution, the vision of the organization, the leadership style all varies. So how to ensure that certain things which as a part of ethical practices when become legal can beautifully help not only the country to grow, but help in achieving the other minor objectives as well. So when we are talking about CSR in India, we know that on April 1st, 2014, it became a part of Companies Act of 2013, and so on, depending upon the different areas being identified, different activities. And since it is mandated, CSR budget of 12,000 crore per year is approximately, this is a budget. And in different ways, in different forms, in different areas, it is ensured that effective implementation of CSR and effective implementation of the law has to be complied. And of course, when you assess the impact, you see how the country grows in terms of everybody's development. Another beautiful example is the Sustainable Developmental Goals, which has been laid down from 2015 to 2030. You see, there is a wide gamut being covered, whether it is poverty alleviation, whether it is ensuring peace and justice, whether it is about bringing the right quality education, whether it is about decent work economic growth, or whether it is about cleanliness, health, sanitation, or whether it is about ensuring that climate is being taken care of. So this is one other part wherein how ethics can be effectively lineated along with the principles of ethical and legal action. So we see there is a deep relationship and there is an integrated fashion in which ethical responsibility, legal responsibility, and the economic responsibility, they go hand in hand. And none of them could be ignored or none of them could be sidelined because both of three of them together makes a difference and are dependent upon each other to achieve the bigger goal of playing in the right ethical way and to ensure that ethical decision making is happening. Thus, for every organization to prosper and to sustain for long run, it is very important that the right vision and clarity on what is moral, what is amoral, and what is immoral has to be defined so that there are no flaws, so that there are no grievances related to it. So it needs to be implemented with correct awareness, with correct scope, and of course to comply it in its best sense. So same thing happens whenever we are talking about morality and CSR. The rising and the strengthening figure are suitable indications to indicate that whenever we are adhering in the most appropriate form, it is only betterment or development which follows. Then when we are talking about what are the hot legal issues in professional ethics, this is something which needs to be self-introspected, whether it is situation specific, whether it is task specific, whether it is people specific, or whether it is organization specific. We have to ensure that while we are talking about professional ethics, it is not one person's responsibility. It is responsibility of everyone who's a part and parcel of that organization. So that overall, with respect to the defined stakeholders, it brings the best. So very important is to understand whatever are the procedures or whatever law is being defined, whether it is for natural justice, whether it is with dealing with minors, whether it is for intellectual property rights. One part, awareness is a must, and other part, honest, complete, and appropriate compliance is important. Similarly, we may take several examples like whether it is prevention of sexual harassment, whether it is dealing with minors, whether it is any kind of inequity or discrimination. All these things have to be sufficiently being taken care of, and the compliance has to be stringent as per the stated guidelines. So legal ethics, when we talk about, refers to a code of conduct which gives a direction, which gives a roadmap of how we have to behave in those particular ways. It understands and tells you how we have to deal with the client. So when in terms of marketing we are talking, it is different. When it is dealing with human resource, it is different. When it comes to complying with your data management, it is different. So until unless there is a clarity, and until unless people know what are the do's and don'ts, what are the offenses and penalties, it has to be brought as a part of the value system as well as a part of complying it in a right direction. So in this session, we have discussed about three important things. We have discussed about what is being ethical and what is being legal. We talked it with the example of Minimum Wages Act, and then we talked about what are the different challenges being talked in terms of professional ethics. I hope all of you must have enjoyed the session. We will once again meet for discussing the next subtopic of how to redress the grievances. Thank you.